My name is Emma Collins, and I was 32 the night my boyfriend suggested I should date his younger brother instead of him. He said it while I was loading his parents' dishwasher. If you'd frozen the frame right then, it would have looked aggressively normal. Sunday dinner dishes stacked on the counter, the smell of pot roast still hanging in the air. His dad in the living room complaining about his golf game. His mom wrapping leftovers like it was a competitive sport. It was one of those evenings that's supposed to feel safe and boring in the best way. Instead, that was the night my relationship quietly died. Ryan and I were on cleanup duty. I had my hands in warm, soapy water, rinsing plates. He was scraping off the last bits of gravy and mashed potatoes into the trash, humming along to some pop song playing low on the kitchen speaker. Then, casually, like he was commenting on the weather, he said, "You know what would be hilarious?" I didn't even look up. "What?" "You should totally date my brother instead." The fork slipped out of my hand and clinked against the sink. I turned off the water and stared at him. "What?" Ryan laughed, like he'd just delivered a killer punchline. He had that easy grin people trusted, the same one that got him out of speeding tickets and into last-minute reservations. "No, seriously," he continued, clearly pleased with himself. "You and Mike would be perfect together. You're both so boring." The word hit harder than it should have. Boring. He just kept going. He reads those depressing literary novels. You watch 3-hour documentaries about wars nobody remembers. He meal preps on Sundays. You have like a spreadsheet for everything. You both drink black coffee. It's kind of weird you're with me and not him, when you think about it. I stood there holding a wet plate, my brain scrambling to catch up. "I'm sorry, what?" Ryan shrugged. "I just need someone with actual energy, someone spontaneous. But you two, match made in heaven. You'd probably both be asleep by 9:30 on a Saturday night." My chest went tight. "Are you breaking up with me right now?" He rolled his eyes. "Oh my God, Emma, no. Why do you have to make everything so serious? I'm just saying, objectively speaking, you and Mike make way more sense personality-wise. It's funny if you actually think about it." Funny. We'd been together 4 years, engaged for 8 months, wedding venue booked, invitations designed, deposit paid on a photographer who charged more for 8 hours than I made in a week. I had a dress hanging in a garment bag in my closet. My mother had already cried over centerpiece options. And he thought it was funny to suggest I should be with his brother instead. "That's an interesting way to see it," I said carefully. He smirked like I'd just agreed with him. "Right? I mean, don't be weird about it. I'm just being honest. Honesty is important in a relationship." We finished cleaning in a silence that pressed against my skin. On the drive home, Ryan scrolled Instagram, thumb flicking up, the blue light of his phone reflecting in the windshield. He laughed at a meme, replied to a story, switched playlists. He didn't notice I hadn't said a single word. By the time we pulled into the parking lot of our apartment building, my jaw ached from clenching it. He kissed my cheek absently before getting out of the car. "Don't forget, we need to finalize the menu with the caterer this week," he said, already walking toward the door. "And my mom wants to know if you're okay with her wearing navy. Apparently black is too morbid." I followed him up the stairs on autopilot. That night, I lay in the dark next to him, listening to his breathing even out as he fell asleep in under 10 minutes. My eyes traced the cracks in the ceiling I'd memorized over the past few years. "You should totally date my brother instead." I pictured Mike's face at dinner, the way he'd listened when I talked about work, how he'd asked follow-up questions instead of waiting for his turn to speak. Quiet, reserved, always slightly in Ryan's shadow. The serious one. Boring, apparently, just like me. I reached for my phone on the nightstand, the screen too bright in the dark room. My thumb hovered over my messages for a second, then slid to a different name. Mike Carter. We'd never texted one-on-one before. Group chats for family logistics, sure. A stray photo of a dog, a meme, a recipe his mom wanted us all to try. But nothing like this. I stared at the blank message for a long time before typing. "Hey, Mike, any chance we could grab coffee this week? There's something I want to run by you." I almost deleted it 3 times before hitting send. The read receipt popped up faster than I expected. "Mike, sure, is everything okay?" I swallowed. "Me, yeah, just would rather talk in person." A few dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared. Mike, "Okay, Thursday, 2 p.m. at the place on Morrison?" Of course, he suggested the spot where Ryan's family always met for birthdays and pre-holiday caffeine. Practical, predictable, very Mike. Me, perfect, thanks. I set the phone down. Ryan snored softly beside me, oblivious. My heart was pounding like I'd just done something terrible, even though all I'd asked for was coffee. Thursday came, and Mike walked into the cafe at exactly 1:59 p.m. He looked like he always did. Neat, understated, dark jeans, button-down shirt, jacket zipped halfway. His hair was still damp at the edges, like he'd showered right before leaving work. He spotted me and gave a small, uncertain smile before heading to the counter. "Hey," he said when he reached the table with his drink. "Black coffee, no sugar, of course. You okay?" "Yeah," I lied. "Thanks for meeting me." He sat across from me, studying my face with that focused, slightly worried expression. "Your text sounded kind of serious." I took a breath. My phone was already out on the table, notes app open. Last Sunday night, I'd typed out Ryan's words while they were still fresh, each sentence like a bruise blooming across the screen. "I'm just going to read you something," I said. "And I want you to know I'm not exaggerating. This is word for word." Mike's jaw tightened, but he nodded. I read, "You should totally date my brother instead. You're both so boring. He reads those depressing literary novels. You watch 3-hour documentaries about wars nobody remembers." By the time I finished, Mike's face had moved from confused to pale to something like stunned anger. "He actually said that?" he asked quietly. "Every word," I said, while we were loading the dishwasher, like he was talking about the weather. Mike put his cup down carefully, like he was afraid he might crush it. "Oh my God, Emma, I'm so sorry." "You didn't say it," I pointed out, but my throat was tight. "No, but—" He looked away for a second, jaw working. "That's such a horrible thing to say. About you, about me, about everything." I let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, I wasn't exactly rolling on the floor. Are you—" He hesitated. "How are you feeling about this?" It was such a simple question. In 4 years, Ryan had never asked me that after saying something cutting. At best, he'd say, "Come on, I was just kidding." And at worst, "You're overreacting." I stared at Mike. "Honestly, I don't even know yet. I just needed you to know. He dragged you into it, and it felt wrong not to tell you." Mike exhaled, leaning back in his chair. "For what it's worth, I enjoy talking to you. At dinners, at holidays. You're one of the only people who actually listens, instead of waiting to jump in with a story about themselves." "Careful," I said. "You're going to ruin the family narrative. I'm the boring one, remember?" His mouth twitched. "If you're boring, then I'm boring too, and I'm okay with that." We talked for over 2 hours. He told me about growing up as the serious brother, while Ryan was the charming one. How every achievement he had was treated like a nice bonus, while Ryan's smallest success was a celebration. How boring had been thrown at him his entire life, like an insult dressed as a personality type. I told him about spreadsheets and lists, and how I liked knowing what was going to happen. How Ryan loved spontaneity right up until the moment any responsibility was involved. "The really messed up part," Mike said, turning his empty coffee cup slowly between his palms, "I actually get along with you better than I get along with him most of the time." Something in my chest loosened and tightened at the same time. "Yeah," I admitted softly. "I've noticed." When we finally stood to leave, there was a moment, just one, where we both hesitated. No touching, no lingering looks, nothing you could take a picture of and say, "Aha, evidence." But as I walked back to my car, I felt it. Something had shifted. I just didn't realize yet how far that shift was going to go. If someone had asked me a year earlier what falling out of love looked like, I would have said something dramatic. A screaming match in the rain, a suitcase flying down a staircase, the kind of scene people slowed down to watch. In reality, it looked like Ryan's toothbrush still parked next to mine while my heart quietly moved down the hall to someone else's apartment. Not that I admitted that to myself yet. After that coffee with Mike, I told myself nothing had changed. Then I saw the call log on my phone. Mike's name, 42 minutes. Ryan's, 6 missed calls from the past 3 days that I already knew were him asking if I could confirm the guest list or email the florist. Logistics, tasks, things I did so he didn't have to. The next few weeks were a slow bleed. Ryan started coming home later and later. "Guys' night," he'd say, dropping his keys in the bowl by the door around midnight, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't his, like a bar I'd never been to. "Whose cologne is that?" I asked once, leaning in as he passed me. He sniffed his shirt. "Oh, probably from the club. It was packed. Chill, Emma." I could have pushed. I could have asked more questions. But there's a point where you're so tired that the idea of arguing feels heavier than the idea of just letting someone go. So I stopped asking. Instead, my phone lit up with someone else's name. "Mike, do you really keep a spreadsheet for everything?" "Me. Not everything. Just budgets, meals, trips, house projects, important dates. Mike, that's at least most things. I'm not judging. I have a spreadsheet for my spreadsheets. Me. See? This is why your brother thinks we're both boring. Mike, if this is boring, I'll take it. It started like that. Safe, neutral. Shared nerdiness over systems and structure. Then work stuff. He'd text me about a chaotic meeting. I'd answer with my own office horror story. We joked about corporate buzzwords and sent each other screenshots of the worst email subject lines we'd seen that week. We didn't flirt, not at first. Still, I caught myself smiling at my phone in ways I never did when Ryan texted me. One Thursday afternoon, when the office air felt stale and my inbox looked like it was breathing, a message popped up. Mike, are you free for dinner tonight? Actual dinner. Not family dinner, where my dad narrates every golf swing in excruciating detail. My fingers hovered over the keypad. There was no legitimate reason to say no. We were technically future in-laws, friends. Me. Yeah, I think so. Where? Mike. Little Italian place on 5th? The one with the too loud espresso machine and the good bread. The good bread sold me. Me. 7 p.m.? Mike. I'll be there. I told Ryan I had a late meeting, and Mike grabbed food with a coworker afterward. He didn't look up from his phone. Cool. I might go out with the guys. Don't wait up. For a split second, irritation flared, then fizzled out. I wasn't even sure we liked each other enough anymore to have the right to be hurt. The restaurant was warm and buzzing, all clinking glasses and low conversation. Mike was already at a table when I walked in, a glass of water in front of him, menu pushed aside. He stood when he saw me. I noticed stupid things, that his shirt was actually ironed, that he'd put on a watch I'd never seen him wear, that he looked nervous. You look nice, I said, sliding into the chair across from him. You too, he replied. I like he gestured vaguely at my dress. Color. The waitress came, we ordered, and for a few minutes we both pretended to study the table candle like it was fascinating. So, I finally said, breaking the silence, how's the thrilling life of Mike Carter? Any new spreadsheets? He snorted. Actually, yes. I made one for my reading list. I have columns now for where I heard about the book and how likely I am to cry while reading it. If there's no column for emotionally devastated, I don't want it. Oh, that's the red highlighted section. We slipped into conversation like we always did at family dinners, except this time there wasn't an audience. No Ryan cutting in with jokes. No parents steering every discussion back to themselves, no performance. Just us. We talked about travel, not resorts and Instagrammable beaches, but places we wanted to walk quietly, museums that weren't crowded, old cities with ugly side streets that held their own kind of charm. I've always wanted to go to Prague, I admitted, twirling my fork in my pasta. Off-season, when it's cold and kind of gray. Just spend a week getting lost. Mike smiled, the kinds that crinkled the skin at the corners of his eyes. I've never told anyone this because my family would roast me, but my dream trip is just a month living above a bookstore somewhere in Europe. Doesn't matter where, just books and coffee and nothing urgent. God, that sounds amazing, I said. Ryan would last 8 hours before he started Googling rooftop clubs. I know, Mike said quietly. Something heavy and unspoken settled between us. We moved on to weddings. It came up because our waitress mentioned she was saving for hers, and Mike asked her what her most outrageous quote had been so far. She rolled her eyes and said, $4,000 for flowers that are literally going to die in a day, and we all laughed. But after she walked away, Mike looked at me more carefully. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Are you actually going to go through with it? His voice was gentle, but the question landed like a weight. With the wedding? I asked, stalling, even though I knew that's what he meant. Yeah. I set my fork down, took a breath. Every time I picture myself standing at that altar, I said slowly, I feel nothing. Not excitement, not joy, not even fear, just blank, like I'm watching a stranger. Mike's knuckles went white around his glass. That doesn't sound good, he said softly. Is that normal? I asked. I hated how small my voice sounded. No, he said, that's really not normal. He didn't reach across the table for my hand. Didn't tell me what to do. Didn't try to turn my crisis into a speech about him. He just looked at me like he was seeing me. The parts Ryan had always waved off as overthinking. You deserve better than nothing, he said. I swallowed hard. I don't even know what better looks like anymore. For a second, his expression flickered, something like hope and fear tangled together. Maybe it looks like someone who doesn't call you boring, he said, and then act like you're the problem for being hurt. The words pierced more than they should have. Ryan's face flashed in my mind. His smirk, the dismissive wave of his hand. I'm just being honest. Honesty is important in a relationship. I realized I couldn't remember the last time he'd asked me how I was, without it being a lead-in to something he wanted. After dinner, Mike walked me to my car. The air was cool, the kind that nipped at your fingers but didn't quite justify gloves yet. We stopped next to my driver's side door. The streetlight above us flickered, buzzing like it was nervous too. Thank you for tonight, I said. It was nice. Yeah, he said, it was. He shoved his hands into his jacket pockets, shoulders hunching slightly. Emma? Yeah? If you decide not to go through with it, he said carefully, you're not crazy, or weak, or selfish. You'd just be choosing yourself. There it was. The thing we'd both been circling without naming. My heart thudded against my ribs. And if I do go through with it? His jaw clenched, but he forced a small smile. Then I'm still your brother-in-law someday, and I'll bring you books that make you feel less alone. My throat tightened. You already do. We stood there for another beat, trapped in the gravity of something we weren't allowed to acknowledge. Good night, Emma, he said finally. Good night, Mike. I got in the car before I did something stupid, like stay. When I got home, the apartment was dark except for the glow of the TV in the living room. Ryan was sprawled on the couch, controller in hand, shouting at his online teammates. Oh, hey, he said when he noticed me, eyes never leaving the screen. How was your work thing? It was fine, I said. He cursed at the TV, fingers flying. Cool. Don't forget we have that cake tasting on Saturday. My mom's losing her mind about flavors. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Mike. Made it home. Text me if you need to talk. About anything. I stared at the message, standing in the doorway of the life I'd built with Ryan, feeling suddenly like a guest in my own home. I typed back before I could overthink it. Thank you for tonight, for listening. I don't know what I'm doing. His reply came fast. You don't have to know. Just promise yourself you won't ignore that nothing feeling. I locked my phone and slid it into my pocket. In the flicker of the TV light, watching Ryan yell about a game that didn't matter, I realized the worst part wasn't that I might be falling for his brother. The worst part was that I had already fallen out of love with him, and I hadn't even noticed it happening until now. It's strange how the most life-altering decisions don't always begin with a dramatic moment. For me, it began with a cup of coffee. Not even a special one, just cheap grocery store beans, brewed too strong because I'd been awake half the night, thinking about Mike's words. Promise yourself you won't ignore that nothing feeling. The truth was, I hadn't ignored it. I'd buried it, and now it was clawing its way up. Ryan stumbled into the kitchen around 10 a.m., hair tousled, still smelling faintly of that cologne that definitely wasn't his. He didn't seem hungover, which meant he hadn't stayed out drinking. He'd been somewhere else, with someone else. He stretched, yawned, and said, Baby, do we still need to send the RSVP list to the caterer today? My mom texted me 12 times about it. He said it with the same tone someone uses to mention they need to buy more milk. I stared at him, a ring of steam rising from my mug like a warning signal. Yes, I said quietly, we need to talk. He frowned, but only because he hated conversations that weren't about him. What'd I do now? He sighed, opening the fridge. I took a breath. I'm calling off the wedding. The refrigerator door hung open behind him as he turned to look at me. What? I can't do this, I said. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I don't want to marry you, Ryan. He blinked once, then laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God, Emma, this is about the brother comment, isn't it? You're seriously still hung up on that? I told you it was a joke. Jesus, you're sensitive. I know what you said was a joke, I replied. The problem is that you meant it. His smile slipped. I don't feel loved by you, I continued, each word scraping out like it had been lodged inside me for years. I feel like a placeholder, someone convenient, someone boring. He rolled his eyes, wandering to the counter. Oh, for the love of... Are we really doing this? Because your feelings got hurt over a stupid joke? My throat closed for a moment. I'm doing this because I don't love you, I said. And I haven't for a while. That froze him. He stared at me, eyes sharp, suddenly very awake. You're seeing someone, he said flatly. I'm not cheating on you, I answered. But there is someone I've talked to about things I should have been able to talk to you about. Someone who listens to me. His jaw tightened. It's Mike, isn't it? I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Ryan's face twisted into something ugly. You unbelievable piece of trash. You're leaving me for my own brother? I'm leaving you, I said quietly, because we don't work. Whatever happens after that isn't your business. He grabbed his coffee mug and hurled it at the wall beside my head. It exploded into ceramic dust. My ears rang. I hadn't even flinched. That, I said softly, is exactly why this is over. Breathing hard, chest heaving, Ryan pointed at me with a shaking hand. You'll regret this. You want to throw 4 years away? For him? Fine. Go. But don't expect anyone to believe your little victim act. I'm not acting, I said. I'm done. I walked down the hall, grabbed the suitcase I'd packed the night before, and zipped it closed. My clothes, my toiletries, the essentials. I'd packed while he was out, while he'd been with whoever gave him that cologne scent. When I came back out, he was blocking the front door. You're not leaving, he said. We're talking about this. No, I said, stepping around him. We're not. You're going to ruin your relationship with my family, he growled. You think they'll take your side? Over me? I reached for the doorknob. Watch me, I said. I walked out. He didn't follow. Moving out. The sublet was a tiny studio with peeling paint and a bathroom door that didn't close properly, but it was mine. My parents called that evening, both of them on speaker. Emma, what did you do? My mom demanded, voice trembling. Ryan called us. He said you left him for his brother? Tell me that is not true. I closed my eyes. Mom, I broke off the engagement because he doesn't treat me well. You're overreacting, she cut in. You're just stressed about the wedding. Mom? You'll ruin everything, she cried. The invitations, the venue, the deposits. Is that what you care about? I whispered. The money? No, she snapped. I care about your future. Dad got on the line. Emma, cold feet are normal. You don't throw away a good man because of nerves. I told them everything. The date my brother comment. The late nights. The mug thrown at my head. The emotional neglect. Silence. Then my mom said, Ryan told us you're lying. I stared at the wall. Mom, I said quietly. Mike heard the comment. He can confirm. Oh, so now you're bringing him into this? She snapped. Do you not hear how bad this sounds? For the first time in my life, I hung up on my mother. Financial fallout. The vendors were next. The wedding venue coordinator answered my call in a bright, rehearsed voice. Hi, Emma. Are you calling with your final guest count? No, I said. I'm calling because the wedding is off. Silence. Off as in postponed? No, canceled. Ryan told us you two were working things out, she said, so we kept the date active. He lied. Well, unfortunately, per the contract, the deposit is non-refundable. That's $8,000. Yes, she said cheerfully. I hung up and pressed my fingers against my temples. The florists were kind. The photographer refunded everything but the $500 deposit. The caterer kept half their money. By the time I'd finished calling everyone, I'd lost almost $11,000. I stared at the total in my budgeting spreadsheet and felt nausea twist in my gut. But not regret. Ryan's next move. Ryan sent 43 texts that night alone. You can't do this to me. My parents are devastated. You want to be with him. Admit it. You broke my heart. You're ruining my life. Answer me. I blocked his number. Then the door buzzer in my sublet went off at midnight. Over and over. Emma, open the door. We are not done. My landlord slipped a note under my door the next morning. Please control your personal matters, or you will need to find another place to live. I spent that afternoon filing a police report. The officer barely looked up from the form. Sounds like a domestic situation. You should talk to him. He threw a mug at my head, I said. The officer shrugged. If he shows up again, call 911. Here's your case number. That was it. That was all the protection I got. Ryan escalates. The consequences began stacking fast. He showed up outside my office building, yelling at security that I'd stolen from him. Security had to verify my identity. They banned him from the property. He called my parents again. My mother left me a voicemail through tears. He says you're having an affair with his brother. How could you do this to him? I deleted the message halfway through. Mike checks in. That night, as I sat on the floor of my tiny studio surrounded by piles of paperwork, my phone buzzed. Mike, are you okay? Ryan's been calling everyone. He's making it sound like you cheated. Me. I know, I'm exhausted. Mike. Do you need anything? I hesitated. Me. Can you come by? There was no pause this time. Mike. On my way. 15 minutes later, he was at my door, breathing like he'd run up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. He saw my face and didn't ask what happened. He just opened his arms. I didn't think, I just stepped into them. He held me for a long time, long enough for my heartbeat to drop to something steady. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. You're not alone, he said, no matter what he tries to make you believe. I nodded into his shoulder. But neither of us said the thing hanging between us. Not yet. We both knew the truth. Everything was about to get much, much worse. There's a particular heaviness that settles over you right before you willingly walk into a disaster. It's not fear, not dread. It's resignation, like standing at the top of a roller coaster you can't get off of, thinking, well, this is happening. That was me on Sunday morning. Mike and I sat in his car outside his parents' house, hands entwined on the center console, our fingers interlocked in a way that should have felt forbidden. It didn't. It felt honest. The Carters' home was a picture-perfect suburban nest. Cream-colored siding, trimmed hedges, wind chimes that jingled like they were mocking the tension in my spine. Inside, vanilla candles, framed graduation photos, perfectly folded throw blankets. Nothing out of place except the emotional war waiting to explode. Mike exhaled slowly. You still sure? No, I said, but I'm still doing it. He nodded. Then we go in together. We stepped out of the car. Everything in me braced for impact. The entry. Mike rang the doorbell. His father opened the door, a man built from stubborn principles and golf tans. His gaze dropped immediately to our joined hands. His face whitened. What is going on? He asked, voice sharp enough to cut. Mike kept his tone even. Can we come in? His father stepped aside, stiff as a statue. When we entered the dining room, his mother was setting the table, all polished silver and floral napkins. Ryan sat at the head of the table, in a white shirt, sleeves rolled dramatically, hair styled just messy enough to look tragic. A costume, a performance, an audition for the role of heartbroken man. His mother looked up, saw us holding hands, and dropped a plate. It hit the floor and shattered. What is he doing here? She demanded, pointing at me like I was a stain on her carpet. Mike squeezed my hand once before stepping forward. Mom, he said steady, we're dating. Silence. A silence so thick it felt like someone had sucked all the oxygen out of the room. Then, Ryan laughed. A sharp, manic sound that didn't match his carefully styled appearance. Oh, this is perfect, he said, clapping once, loud. This is absolutely perfect. Thank you. Thank you for proving my point. What point? Mike asked coldly. That she was cheating on me, Ryan snapped. Nobody believed me, but here you are. I wasn't cheating, I said. I ended things before anything happened. Ryan scoffed. Oh, please. Semantics. Emotional cheating counts too. You told me, I said, voice steady, that I should date your brother because we were both boring. His mother gasped and turned to him sharply. You said what? Ryan's eyes widened. It was a joke. Mike stepped forward. I was there, Mom. I heard it, word for word. His father's expression darkened into something rigid. Even if that happened, which is questionable, dating your brother's ex is unacceptable. Both of you should be ashamed. Mike's voice trembled, not from fear, but from decades of swallowed frustration. Dad, he said quietly, you can't hold me to a standard you never held Ryan to. His father stiffened. What does that mean? It means, Mike said, that he gets away with everything, always has. Ryan rolled his eyes. Oh, here we go. St. Mike, with another self-pity monologue. Mike's jaw tightened. This isn't self-pity, this is truth. The explosion. All the small hurts, the lifelong comparisons, the boring nickname, the overshadowing, burst out of him like a dam breaking. You've let him treat everyone like they're disposable, Mike said. You excused it every time because he's fun and I'm serious. But being serious doesn't mean being less. His mother sputtered. That's just what brothers do. No, Mike said, voice unshakably calm. That's what bullies do. Ryan shoved his chair back and stood. Oh, give me a break. I've always been nice to you. You told your fiancé, Mike shot back, that she should date me because we're both boring. That was a joke? Mike snapped. Then own it as a joke. Don't pretend it wasn't cruel. Ryan opened his mouth, but Mike wasn't done. You've treated me like a prop my whole life. Someone to make you look better. Someone you can insult, then blame when I don't laugh. His father slammed his palm against the table. Enough! But Mike didn't even flinch. No, he said, it's not enough, not anymore. The shift. Ryan turned to me suddenly, his voice breaking into a practiced, trembling softness. Emma, please, we can fix this. We can talk outside, please. No, I said. We had 4 years. You made it clear how little you saw me. That doesn't mean I don't love you. You love the version of me that didn't ask for anything. His expression twisted into rage again. So what, you're choosing him? My own brother? I met his eyes. No, I'm choosing myself. Mike is just someone who saw what you didn't. His mother gasped as if I'd slapped her. You betrayed this family, she said, pointing at me with trembling fingers. You betrayed Ryan. That was the last straw. Mike stepped between us. No, he said. This family betrayed itself. You let Ryan treat everyone like collateral damage. Emma didn't destroy anything. She escaped. His father's face went cold. Both of you, leave this house, now. Ryan smirked. He thought he'd won. Mike exhaled slowly. Fine. He took my hand again. His mother shouted something about karma and shame. Ryan threw more accusations into the air, but none of it stuck. As we walked out the door, I felt Mike's hand shaking. When we reached the car, he leaned against the side of it, eyes closed. That was awful, he whispered. It was necessary, I said. He nodded once. They're never going to forgive me. Maybe not, I replied softly. But now you can finally stop forgiving them for hurting you. He opened his eyes, and something unspoken passed between us. A beginning. We drove away from the house slowly, the windows down, the scent of spring drifting in. Behind us, the life I almost married into collapsed under its own weight. Ahead of us was something new, something fragile, something real. If someone had told me the fallout would happen slowly, not as an explosion, but as a series of quiet collapses, I wouldn't have believed them. But that's exactly what happened. It wasn't one big moment, it was 1,000 small ones. The first crack came 3 days after the brunch. A private Instagram account, new username, no profile picture, added everyone we mutually knew. Then the stories began. Betrayed by the two people I trusted most. Snakes hide in families. Never let someone steal your partner. No names, not needed. Her friends ate it up. I lost about 20 acquaintances in a single night. Unfollowed, blocked, group chats I was quietly removed from. But the real friends, the ones who mattered, they messaged me directly. Okay, I saw her posts. Something doesn't add up. What happened? I told them the truth. Screenshots, dates, receipts. And for once in my life, the truth was enough. The price of leaving. Breaking an engagement is expensive in ways no wedding blog warns you about. The venue wanted the remaining balance. The caterer refused to reimburse half. The florist demanded cancellation fees. And Ryan had told them all that the wedding was still happening, just with a different groom. I had to hire a real lawyer. Another $2,300 gone. By the end of it, I'd lost around $16,800. A number that would have devastated me once. Now, it felt like a receipt for freedom, a cost I'd pay again without hesitation. Mike's aftermath. If I thought my life got messy, Mike's was a tornado. His parents refused to speak to him for days. His mother left him long voicemails crying, guilt-tripping, blaming him for destroying the family. His father sent one message. You are not welcome in this house until you end this relationship. And for the first time in his entire life, Mike didn't cave. He didn't apologize. He didn't shrink. He didn't bend himself into the shape that made his family comfortable. He blocked their numbers. And then he showed up at my sublet with a bag of takeout and said, I guess we're both orphans now. I laughed harder than I had in months. Ryan's collapse. Eventually, Ryan's glamorous victim narrative cracked. The man himself was the weak link. The girl he'd been seeing behind my back? She ghosted him the moment she realized the drama wasn't a vibe, it was a lifestyle. Someone at his office anonymously sent HR screenshots of his spiteful posts, claiming they created a hostile work environment. He got written up. Then came the apartment problem. He couldn't afford it alone, so he moved back in with his parents, who, at that point, were exhausted with him. According to a mutual friend, his father finally snapped and said, How did you let such a good woman go? Ryan apparently screamed about how I stole his brother, but even they weren't buying it anymore. They started noticing things. The lies. The manipulation, the theatrics, the way everything was always someone else's fault. Patterns they'd ignored for decades suddenly lit up like warning signs. Slowly, quietly, they pulled back their unconditional support. The golden child wasn't shining anymore. Building something boring and beautiful. At some point, maybe when the dust settled, maybe when the world shrank down to just the two of us, Mike asked if I wanted to look at apartments together. Not forever, not moving in a terrifying, defining way. Just together. We found a small place, second floor. A balcony barely big enough for 2 chairs and a plant. An absurd number of shelves for our combined collection of boring books. The first night there, we sat on the balcony under a cheap string of lights. Him with a novel, me with a documentary on my tablet. It was quiet, uneventful, so still it almost scared me. Peace is loud when you're not used to it. Mike looked up from his book and smiled at me, the soft kind, the one that made the air shift. You okay? He asked. And I realized something. Ryan never asked me that. Not once. Not sincerely. Not without expecting something in return. I nodded. Yeah, I am. He reached over, found my hand in the twilight, and squeezed. A tentative reconciliation. 2 months later, his father called. He didn't answer. Then texted. He didn't answer. then emailed. Finally, Mike read it. Your mother is devastated. This relationship, it isn't you. You've always been the reasonable one, the mature one. Come home. Mike's reply was short. That's the problem. I was only the reasonable one when it meant making myself smaller for everyone else. I'm done doing that. A long silence followed. Then his father wrote, Maybe we haven't been fair to you. Not an apology, but the first crack in a wall that had always been built around Ryan. Sometimes that's enough to start over. The last message. The final message came from a number I didn't recognize. A text with all the venom on earth condensed into 2 sentences. Hope you're happy with the discount version of me. He'll never be enough for someone like you. For the first time in months, I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I didn't question myself. I simply blocked the number, then went back to the couch where Mike sat cross-legged, a mug of tea in his hands, waiting for me. What was that? He asked gently. Nothing important, I said. He nodded, trusting me without needing details. I curled up next to him. He kissed the top of my head, and I breathed in the quiet certainty of someone who didn't need to perform to be loved. The ending. Sometimes happily ever after looks like fireworks. Ours looks like library dates, shared grocery lists, arguments about who gets the good pillow. 2 boring people learning that boring is just another word for safe. Am I scared? A little. Trust doesn't regrow overnight, and there are moments, rare but real, where I wonder if he'll wake up and realize his brother was right about me. But then he looks at me like I'm the most interesting thing in the room. And I remember, someone else's opinion of me isn't my reality. Ryan didn't get the last chapter of my story. I did, and it's quiet and steady and mine.